Okay, so this is going to be part one in our series on how to create a web page where we start and do the entire layout in Adobe Illustrator. Then the workflow involves us bringing it into Photoshop to slice it up, and then we bring it into Dreamweaver to make it go live with our links and everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the Create New in Illustrator. We're going to go to Web, and let's go ahead and do Web Large 1920 by 1080. Those numbers will come in handy later. Remember that. Create. Okay, so we've got our page up. We're going to go to set things up here. First, we're going to turn on our grid. Then we are going to do snap to grid. And we're also going to do view rulers, show rulers. So we've got the grid visible, we've got snap to grid, and rulers, show rulers. Okay, now previously what you may want to do is go through a commercially designed web page and drag down guides over a screenshot of it and just sort of see how its layout looks. But we're going to assume that we've done that step already. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically pull our guides by clicking on the rulers. To pull out a vertical line, we click on the vertical ruler and pull out. To click on a horizontal line, we click on the horizontal ruler and we drag down. And we are going to make a space for our banner, a space for our navigation bar, and then we've got everything here for our content. And we'll go ahead and sort of set up our layout first. Then what we're going to do is I'm going to call this layer Guides. I'm going to lock that. I'm going to make a new layer, and we're going to begin our nav bar. So this is going to be how we navigate around the web page. I'm going to do this pretty ugly and pretty quickly, just so you can learn the techniques, but please spend some more time with the aesthetics and the color and the typography and everything like that to make this look like a nice, rich, well-designed website. So I'm going to have a link for home. I'm going to make it big enough to see. And I'm going to go ahead and center it on that. And let's just go ahead and do, there we go. Is that going to crash the program? Loading up fonts seems to be crashing Illustrator on me lately. Okay, so we're still rolling here. I had to pause for a second to get Illustrator working. So I've gone ahead and created home. I'm going to hold down Alt, click and drag over. You can see how my type box is the exact same size as my area between my guides. And I'm just going to make some standard links that you'd see on any kind of a web page. This will be a gallery. Okay, so I've got everything sort of set up here. I'm going to take these guys, just sort of drop them in there. Okay, so now that I've got my nav bar set up, and this is all on a layer by itself, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select nav bar, go over here, I'm going to do duplicate nav bar, and I'm going to call this rollover. Now I've got two layers that are identical, one on top of the other. I'm going to lock nav bar, select everything on the rollover layer, click and drag over it however you like, and I'm going to alter what this looks like for the rollover state so that when you are hovering your mouse over the button on the web page, it'll change from looking like that to looking like that. And I'll also go ahead and just add a subtle effect on here. We're going to do a subtle drop shadow. Yep, let's go ahead and go for that. Okay, so now I've got my nav bar and I got my rollover. Okay, I want my nav bar to remain identical for every single sub page. And so what I'm going to do, let's just say this is here real quick. I'll add a content layer, but we're going to play around with that a little bit later. Okay, so on the content, this will be like my heading. This will be like the title of my website. Okay. So I can actually lock that and turn that off. All right, so I'm going to actually go ahead and duplicate my entire artboard here for 3 times. So we have a total of 4 pages that are going to have the exact same arrangement of the heading and the nav bar. And so if I go to the window menu, go down to artboards, select the first artboard, and I'm going to do duplicate artboard. Now it's only going to duplicate the layers that I have that are visible and unlocked. So I'm going to unlock navbar and content, select that layer, do duplicate artboards, and you can see here everything's still on the rollover layer, everything's still on the navbar layer. I've got an identical copy, and if I were to zoom up on these, you can see that when I switch from one to the next, the navbar doesn't shift in position on the screen. So it'll be perfect for a website. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to duplicate that twice more. Let's go ahead and zoom out. And you can see, regardless of where I am on these, you know, and don't let the guides trick you. You might make an optical illusion if the grid or the guides look a little bit different, but the web page should be perfectly laid out here. Okay, so that's pretty much the first major step to get you know, this workflow going. What we will do, just briefly, is I'm going to just throw in some placeholder text on each one, and I am going to go to my alignment, and I want to align this to the artboard. Okay, so we go to Window, we go to Align. I'm going to select this object. I want it to be centered on the screen, vertically and horizontally. Just going to shrink that up a little bit. And so if you did add content after you created your multiple nav bars and you want it to be sort of all in the same place, what we can do is we can select that object, go under our options for the Align panel, and do Align to Artboard. And then I can align this to the center of the artboard horizontally and the center vertically, right? Then if I go and I copy that and go over to my next artboard, let's bring it back up our artboards and make sure that we're actually on that artboard, because sometimes you can be viewing another artboard and it's actually, you're still editing on a previous artboard. Let's make sure we're actually on that artboard. I'm going to paste, and this is going to be about, and we can align that such and such. Copy. We go to my next artboard. This is going to be contact, and we again will align it here. And then for the very last one, this will be gallery, and align center. Align center. Okay, so now if we were to navigate through our web page, this is what the different pages are going to be. Obviously, this is the point where you'd actually want to build up your full content, make additional layers for any type you'd have for body text, and additional layers for images. And again, keep your files as organized as possible. Our next steps from here, we're going to end up exporting this into Photoshop. So we'll just take you through the export step right now, and then we'll pick up in our next video in Photoshop. So we're going to do File, Export, Export As. We're going to set our format to Photoshop, and the reason for doing so is that that'll maintain our separate layers with the rollover and the navbar. We're going to select Use Artboards. I'm going to put this in a new folder. This will be website test, and then I like to include the day's date in the file name, just in case you end up having multiple tests and you get a little bit confused when you come back to it. Okay, so this is going to be web test, and again I'll put the name not just in the folder but also in the file. Make sure you have Use Artboard selected, and make sure that the layers you want to export are on. I no longer really need my guides, so I'm just going to make sure content, rollover, and navbar are on, and we're going to hit export. I'm going to set the resolution to high, leave it RGB, make sure Write Layers is selected. We're going to hit OK. Okay, so that's going to go ahead and export, and then we'll pick it up in our next video. We'll show you where to take it with Photoshop. Thank you.